72 hours. That's all the time it took for Papoose's entire public image to combust into ash, because what started as a whisper turned into a wildfire, and by the time the smoke cleared, 3 reputations were scorched, 1 marriage was dust, and 50 Cent was standing over the wreckage with a lighter in his hand. Now right here is where the ground splits open underneath the Papoose Claressa Shields fairy tale, because the bedroom photos everybody was praying would stay tucked away in somebody's cloud drive finally crawled onto the timeline, and the fallout that followed didn't trickle, it detonated. Papoose has officially cut Claressa loose, not on a break, not taking space, cut loose, severed. And the trigger wasn't some slow drip disagreement about laundry or finances. It was a carousel of intimate images that Curtis Jackson had been teasing for weeks, like a man holding a match over gasoline, waiting for the perfect breeze. Peel back every layer of this thing and examine the wreckage, because behind the trophy wife photo ops and the "that's my heavyweight champ" captions, something entirely different was cooking. Whispers that loyalty was a costume, whispers that fidelity had been optional for a minute. And the moment those pictures hit, every rumor that fans had been quietly filing away for later suddenly had a receipt stapled to it. Claressa didn't glide off quietly either. Oh no. The woman strapped on gloves and came out swinging in a direction nobody anticipated. Instead of owning the narrative or disappearing into the private life tunnel, she flipped the chessboard completely, aiming the barrel of the scandal straight back at Papoose with an accusation so loud it redirected the entire news cycle. Her claim? That her soon-to-be ex has been living a second life. That the man who posted her like a prize was keeping company with men in rooms nobody was invited into. Pure, uncut, timeline-shattering allegation territory. So let me strip this to the bone for the people in the back. A few breathing spaces ago, Claressa dropped a carousel on her page with the caption, "Life-size Bratz doll, 2 fits." Posing in a snow-white tank and barely there shorts, and Papoose slid straight under the post like a proud boyfriend doing his public duty, typing out, "I love those pictures, baby." Sweet, right? That's what the internet thought too, until Claressa responded with something that reads different now than it did then. In a missive note, she wrote, "Of course you love my pics the most. You got the special ones earlier. Love you." In the moment, fans clocked it as playful flirting between 2 people in love. Hindsight, it looks a whole lot more like she was signaling something, because those special ones she was referencing, a whole lot of folks now believe those are the exact same frames that found their way into strangers' inboxes, a teaser dressed as affection. Watch how the chessboard tipped. With Claressa allegedly crossing the fidelity line and broadcasting versions of those images in her own orbit, it was practically written in the stars that Papoose would eventually wrap his things in a duffel and step. But what gutted him wasn't just the betrayal itself, it was the method of discovery. Out of every possible way a man can find out his lady has been dancing outside the lines, Papoose got the news through a public announcement from the same rapper who built an empire out of tearing other people's lives open for sport. Yes, Curtis, the original landlord of internet chaos. He didn't whisper it in a group chat. He didn't slide into Papoose's DMs man to man. He unleashed a Photoshop job of Claressa's ex-connection and Papoose himself standing shoulder to shoulder with their faces swapped, captioning it with enough venom to corrode metal. Very, very handsome. Hey, Pop, ask your old lady Claressa if she was seeing Maserati Bud. Tell her to be honest because I have the Ring camera videos. Now hold on, rewind that for a second. Ring camera videos. That's not regular beef ammunition. That's the kind of evidence that can't be talked around, can't be spun, can't be softened with a strategically worded apology note. That's footage. That's timestamps. That's someone walking up to a door, being greeted, being welcomed inside, and leaving hours later. That's the nuclear option, dressed up in a single Instagram caption. And initially, Papoose refused to flinch. He stepped into the ring like a man who believed his partner. He pulled up an old clip of 50 speaking about an uncomfortable moment involving Vivica AX and slapped it online with the caption, "I couldn't make this up if I tried. Lying on another man while your own past behavior is on record is wild. I've got him acting desperate now. All this just because you enjoy disrespecting black women and can't really rap." Strong words, calculated words, the words of a husband who believed he was defending something sacred. And then, piece by piece, the scaffolding started to groan. Because here's where the story mutates into something uglier. Papoose eventually sat down with Vlad and addressed the Maserati Bud situation head on. And the version he offered was, let's be diplomatic, underwhelming. He admitted Claressa had indeed spent time with Bud. His framing, nothing happened. No physical line was crossed. A simple hangout between grown folks. Hearing that, you could practically hear the collective eyebrow raise of an entire internet, because when a man who was actively being sent evidence of said hangouts publicly says, yeah, she was with him, but it was nothing, that's usually not the victory lap people think it is. That's damage control in a nice suit. And while Papoose was busy managing spin, Remy Ma decided the universe owed her a moment of return fire. The former First Lady of Terror Squad posted what she described as text message screenshots between her and Papoose on Instagram, paired with a caption that didn't leave room for interpretation. Her message: Papoose's dumbass fell asleep on the phone with Claressa Shields, laying in my house. He refuses to leave. This supposed to be a world champion boxer and got scary ass? Hung up as soon as she heard my voice. Now I'm telling everything off, and baby girl, you're not the only one. 7 sentences, 7 grenades, and just like that, the idea that Papoose was an innocent husband being unfairly dragged through mud got tossed out the window and replaced with a man looking very much like a chapter in a book of what goes around comes around. Because folks, and this is the part the comment sections keep circling, Papoose's relationship with Claressa was born out of smoke to begin with. He was still legally intertwined with Remy when Claressa entered the picture, and plenty of online observers are now pointing out what feels like poetic symmetry. The universe has a cruel sense of timing, and the same energy Papoose allegedly poured into the ending of his first marriage seems to have come back, knocked on the front door, and made itself at home in marriage number 2. You cannot outrun karma when karma has your address saved in its GPS. Meanwhile, Claressa isn't settling for a quiet exit. She's amplifying, she's escalating, she's loading accusations into a megaphone and aiming them at the sky. Her claim that Papoose has been harboring a hidden attraction to men isn't just a petty breakup jab, it's a narrative detonating bomb, because if any sliver of it is even whispered to be true, it reshapes every photo op, every public declaration, every "my king" caption she ever posted into something people will reread for the rest of his career. Whether there's any merit behind her assertion is a question nobody outside that household can answer with certainty, but the court of internet opinion doesn't wait for verdicts. It renders judgment in real time, retweets as evidence, and reams as precedent. And here's where the whispers from the distant past decided to crawl back into the conversation. Last year, when Remy Ma and Papoose's war was burning at peak intensity, Remy made a blistering claim during an Instagram live session. She alleged that Papoose has a son he refuses to publicly recognize. Her words, softened only slightly for broadcast, went something like this: he has a son, he just doesn't care for his son of sexual orientation, so he behaves as though the young man doesn't exist. She laid the accusation out with the certainty of someone who spent years inside the household and presumably saw the dynamics up close. Papoose, famously guarded about his family, never mounted a public rebuttal to that one. Some said that silence spoke volumes. Others argued it was the dignified response of a man who refuses to argue with an ex. Pick your interpretation. Either way, the story they'd been sitting there on the internet shelf, waiting for a moment exactly like this one to get dusted off. Now, bounce back to Claressa for a second, because some internet analysts, and I use that term loosely, have floated the theory that Papoose gravitated toward her precisely because of her more athletic, more muscular frame. A theory nobody asked for, but one Claressa, bless her heart, decided to address directly in an interview. Speaking about their intimate dynamic, she said, and I'm quoting, "I talk to my man like a king. Don't ever get it messed up, baby. I may have the muscles and I may know how to fight, but I'm very submissive to my man." Good for Papoose, I suppose, but as many online observers pointed out, that level of detail was absolutely not necessary. Instead of extinguishing the gossip, she gave it oxygen. Instead of drawing a line, she drew a diagram. And the PDA drought that fans have also been quietly documenting, the way Papoose constantly professes love in writing but seems to keep physical distance in public, suddenly reads like a receipt for some of these circulating theories. That gap between what a man says and how his body behaves, the internet catalogs that. The internet remembers. But, and this is a massive but, before we stamp Clarissa's version as gospel, let's remember who we're dealing with. The same woman publicly accusing Papoose right now has a history of messy exits. Case in point, Tony Rich. The two were wrapped up around 2020, serious enough that he eventually proposed about 3 years into the relationship, but the engagement collapsed, and what should have been a clean break reportedly turned into a PR wildfire when Claressa allegedly started telling people in the industry that Tony was battling personal struggles. His family wasn't having it. They pushed back hard, publicly, and painted her as someone who weaponizes narratives when things go south. They called her bullying. They called her vindictive. They said she stood in front of them at a church, so close they could reach out and touch her, essentially taunting them during what should have been a solemn moment. His family said, and this is verbatim in spirit, they felt like she was a bully who did little vindictive things because she could, and that they would absolutely tell her to her face, if given the chance, that she ruined the narrative of Tony's life for clout. Pattern recognition, anyone? Because when you zoom out, the Claressa formula starts to feel repeatable. Relationship begins, genuine connection, public adoration, matching posts. Relationship hits turbulence, private disputes, behind closed-door struggles. Relationship ends. Suddenly, the partner is painted in the worst possible light in the public arena, with accusations, insinuations, and character critiques flying at full velocity. Tony Rich knows that playbook. His family knows it. And now, Papoose may be experiencing it in 4K. But none of this, not one square inch of it, absolves Papoose from the pieces of the story that land squarely at his doorstep. A man who allegedly started his relationship with Claressa while still wearing a wedding band doesn't get to clutch pearls when karma returns. A man who brushed off his ex-wife's grievances for years doesn't get to play the shocked husband card when a ring camera shows up with evidence. And a man whose public affection never matched his public captions doesn't get to act stunned when the internet starts asking questions about what he was actually up to when nobody was watching. So where does this carnival of allegations land next? Well, the ball is firmly in Papoose's court. Will he address the ring camera footage that 50 Cent has been dangling over the city skyline like a piñata? Will he finally speak to the long-standing whispers about the son Remy says exists in his life? Will he sit down with any outlet and actually unpack the mess? Or will he do what many suspect he'll do, which is retreat, regroup, and let the internet move on to the next scandal of the week? Because in this economy, the news cycle has ADHD, and if he stalls long enough, something louder will take his place. Maybe. And Claressa, the woman isn't going anywhere. She has a platform, she has a following, she has championship belts in her resume and nothing to lose. She's made it abundantly clear through her live streams that she can go toe-to-toe with anybody who tries to reduce her. Remember that rant where she ran off a laundry list of her own self-described traits? Not ugly girl syndrome, her words, but rather, quoting her energy, I whoop-a syndrome, I love my man syndrome, I'm in the league of my own syndrome, make your own way syndrome, get to the top by any means necessary syndrome. That's not a woman who plans to fade quietly. That's a woman who plans to narrate every second of her own exit. And if Papoose thinks he can outlast her online, he's in for a long, long winter. Then you've got 50 Cent sitting in his glass tower, sipping something cold, watching it all burn with the satisfaction of a man who called this storm from 12 miles away. He's not done. He's never done. The second any of these parties breathe in his direction wrong, he's got more footage, more captions, more memes, and an army of comment section soldiers ready to amplify on command. You cannot win a war of attrition with 50 Cent. It's been statistically proven at this point. Every major feud he's entered, he's outlasted. Ja Rule, Floyd, Tierra Marie, Diddy, the list is a graveyard, and Papoose just wandered into it. The only remaining question, and it's the one shaping every group chat in the hip-hop ecosystem right now, is how far this thing will go before one of the three main characters taps out. Will Papoose release a statement that either confirms or denies the infidelity allegations in a way that sticks? Will Claressa drop so-called receipts of her own and try to flip the court of public opinion in her direction? Will 50 actually send that ring camera footage to Papoose, or is the threat itself the whole strategy? And will Remy Ma double down now that everyone is finally hearing what she's been saying for years?
One thing is crystal clear. The era of Papoose and Claressa being posted up as a happy power couple is over. Completely, irrevocably, gloriously over. What remains is a wreckage of claims versus counterclaims, a timeline littered with receipts both real and alleged, and 3 ex-partners now pulling on the same tangled thread, hoping the whole sweater unravels. It's a mess of cinematic proportions, and the fact that it's all playing out in real time across Instagram, X, and podcast couches only makes it more intoxicating to watch. Now, I want to hear you out. Do you think Papoose is truly innocent in getting set up, or is he reaping exactly what he planted back when he chose to move on Claressa during his Remy chapter? Do you believe Clarissa's allegations about his hidden life carry any weight, or do you think she's pulling a page from the same playbook his family says she used on Tony Rich? Is 50 Cent a messenger, a menace, or both? And more importantly, who do you think is telling the truth in this 3-way war of whispers? Drop all of it in the comments and let's get into the conversation together, because everybody has a take on this one and none of the takes are quiet ones. That's everything I've got for you on this chapter. Lock in, stay tuned, and I'll catch you on the next one.